Well, that brings us to this week's guest. His name's David Mayen, and he actually runs a sleep recovery center. Mm-hmm. And you ran into him, and what happened?
I did. I actually met David at a Starbucks, of all things. We were both working on work, and he was telling me that he runs a sleep recovery center. And when I told him I was working on a podcast for Life, Laughter, Divorce, and what that was all about, he found that very interesting because he'd actually worked with several couples who had been on the verge of divorce or filing for divorce already. So basically, they were in the midst of their breakup and all that goes with it. And he put them through his sleep recovery sessions.
They agreed?
They agreed.
Wow.
Yes. And he put them through this, and then he started sharing with me what the results of this were. And I found that pretty fascinating, to think that something as basic as how you're sleeping could change your entire relationship. So we got to talking, and David was kind enough to invite you and I both in to experience what these sleep recovery training sessions were like. And now, just so you guys know, it does take 20 sessions to have any long-term effect or anything like that, and to really see the difference. And David was really cool, and he let the boyfriend and I go in for 4 sessions. So what we learned in these 4 sessions was more about what to expect when you go in for a session, what it was like, how it felt. He did warn us. He said, you probably won't see any significant changes that early on, but you might see a few things here and there, which we did. We saw some things here and there, but it was fascinating. And I'm kind of excited for you guys to hear for yourself, because this is a whole different holistic approach that we learned about that's really non-invasive.
Non-invasive, no drug or chemical changes. It is an effort to train your brain to sleep better, mm-hmm. or to process things better.
Right.
So it's we'll let David explain it, but it's an interesting approach to this problem.
Absolutely. So we hope you find it as interesting as we did. So without further ado. All right. So here we are with David Mayen, a sleep recovery center. Welcome, David.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, let's start right off the bat. What is your marital status?
Well, I am unmarried. And the reason why I say unmarried instead of single is because a lot of times we will kind of misconstrue the two. When we say single, people tend to think, what's wrong with you? Why are you still single? Are you been living in a cave as a monk for 16 years? No, I've had really wonderful relationships. They just didn't culminate into marriage.
You know what? I never even thought of saying that when people ask me. I just figured they're going to be like, what's wrong with you, no matter what my answer was. So,
Right.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. So, but you are divorced, right?
That's correct.
That's okay. And you're unmarried now.
That's correct.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. Unmarried versus single. I'm going to have to try that out, see how that works. What would you say if people asked you? What do you say?
I'm single. I've never been married, never been anything, so I'm just single. That's how I reply.
Yeah, but if you're to who?
Yeah, no one asked me, so it doesn't really matter.
Okay. Well, that would be weird if I'm standing next to you and you tell people that you're single.
I'm unmarried.
Well, there you go. That's a big difference. Married versus single.
See, we just started a YouTube trend right here at the beginning of the interview.
Yeah. See, so it's #unmarried. Right? But if you have to check a box, like on an application of, divorced or single, well, you wouldn't say divorced, you would say single. Is that what you're talking about?
That's what I thought we were talking about.
Oh, I'm talking about like if someone just asked you. Is that what you're talking about, David?
Well, I don't know. You were doing the asking.
Well,
yeah.
Okay. So if you were a guest on this podcast and I said, what's your marital status?
I'm single.
All right.
Because that's my marital status. I'm unmarried. So.
All right. Okay. So that's different than saying, are you in a relationship?
Definitely.
Okay. right? So if I were to ask you, are you in a relationship? Will you just say I'm unmarried?
No.
Be very vague.
No, that
about
would
it.
be inaccurate.
Oh, all right.
No, I'm in dating mode right now. So.
Got it. Yeah. Okay, fair enough. All right. Well, I haven't been thinking about that. So, okay, so now I've got that in my Rolodex. Thank you. So there's that. Ladies, he's in dating mode, right?
That's correct.
So put that out there.
You're not trying to pimp me out, are you?
No, not unless you want to, and we'll send you a bill. So there's that. But we're here because David runs a sleep recovery center, right?
That's correct, yeah.
Owner, founder of the Sleep Recovery Center.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up talking to you, and we were talking about you had done this little test. You were telling me what sleep recovery is. So if you want to tell me, our listeners, briefly, what you guys do here at Sleep Recovery Center.
Okay. In 2008, I started the first Sleep Recovery Center, which is the first innovative insomnia clinic of its kind in the world. And we use an advanced form of brainwave biofeedback as opposed to using talk therapy or medications or over-the-counter supplements, which is really more common now. So we use this brainwave biofeedback. It's also called neurofeedback. And what it does, in essence, is it detects and corrects instabilities in the electrical flow of the human brain. And it does that through an interface of the brain connected to software that will scan the brain and look for where the brain is firing these instabilities or imbalances. And when I say that, I don't mean like mental instabilities or mental illness, but people's brains generally do not fire as efficiently as they could or they should. And so what this does is it literally teaches the brain second by second how to rebalance those instabilities. And one of the first things to normalize, again, without any drugs or talk therapy, is sleep.
So when you and I first started talking about this and you kind of gave me that description of what you do, I was like, well, what does that mean exactly for someone like me? Like, basically, if I'm having trouble sleeping, right, and I don't want to go on Ambien or I don't want to do over-the-counter stuff anymore, or that's maybe just not working for me.
Or you want to get off of that.
Or I want to get off of that. Then I would come to you and you would train my brain to skip over those inconsistencies and everything. And then I could sleep better. And then my problem would be solved. So when you and I met and we happened to be talking and I was telling you about life after divorce and everything, you're like, well, it's interesting because sleep affects everything in your life. It affects your relationships. It affects how your day is going, your job, all of that stuff. And you happened to say that you had worked with about 4 couples. Yeah, so 8 people, 4 couples, and they were all on the brink of divorce or a big breakup at the time. And
some of them were in the actuality of having already filed, sure.
Yeah, and then what you did is you had them go through your training for your sleep recovery. And when they came out of 20 sessions, right? They each went through 20 sessions. They came out, they all got back together.
All but one couple.
All but one couple. Yeah. 3 out of 4 couples.
Yeah.
Just by sleeping better.
That's correct. And they also reported that their quality of relationship had improved too.
Wow.
Which is really, really important because just staying together is not enough. You know, there's got to be joy. There's got to be a sense of connectivity and unity between partners. And if there's not, then it's basically just kind of a paper tiger, you know. So most of the people that were part of that pilot test, again, were in varying degrees of relationship conflict. And doing their intake screening, I realized that at least one or sometimes even both people in that relationship were having difficulty sleeping.
Wow.
And the problem with chronic exhaustion when somebody doesn't sleep for night after night after night is they develop these behaviors that are not part and parcel of their personality. One of the biggest ones that's really hard on relationships is what I call short fuse syndrome. And this is where people will just go off on the least provocation. And the most hurtful, you know, character assassinative dialogue will come spilling out of them. And when they finish, they're asking themselves, where in the hell did that come from?
Right. It's usually coming from like road rage, sitting in traffic and suddenly things building up.
It's similar to that. But what it does is it creates hurt feelings and resentments. And most importantly, it destroys any semblance of trust.
Right.
And it really isn't the person that did that. Wasn't the person. It was just a set of behaviors that come uncontrollably with not sleeping.
Interesting.
And so those behaviors, once those 4 couples started to do the treatment, once, we started to get traction with them, a lot of those behaviors went away and the relationship automatically started healing.
Well, it kind of makes a lot of sense. I know if I'm super tired and stuff, I'm not feeling my best, or it's like you're getting super hungry.
Right.
And starving and starting to get hangry.
Right.
And everything.
Right.
So, yeah, it makes sense. You get a little snappy.
Well, and insomnia carries with it a sense of denial and self-deception that's not all that together different from alcoholism or drug addiction. The brain tells the person who has insomnia, if you just wait another week or another month, it'll get better on its own, and it doesn't. It's progressive, just like alcoholism is. Mm-hmm. And so the person will look for what I call the most convenient to blame, and it's usually their partner.
Really?
Yeah.
So, okay. So
it's your fault that I'm not, it's your fault that I'm having these behaviors.
Yeah. So when people come to you, like, do you find that a lot of people come to you as individuals, or do a lot of couples come to you to work on that?
Well, this falls into the most convenient to blame too. The person who is being abused will usually figure out that the other partner is not sleeping or not getting good quality sleep, and they'll basically force them to come. And then they'll get better, and then the other partner will go, well, what about me?
Yeah.
And now what I do is, if a married couple comes in together for that first session, I will comp or courtesy a free session to the other partner, just so they have an experiential understanding of what the other partner is doing,
right,
instead of just kind of a theoretical idea of what they're doing. And invariably, about half the time, both of them do it.
Yeah.
Both of them do it. And in my opinion, and I don't want this to sound like a sales pitch, but if both of them did it, the relationship would get better. It would get better, because even if a person is sleeping better than the other partner, they still have anxiety. They still have baggage from the past. They have unresolved traumas, those types of things. And so the treatment doesn't look just for the instabilities for sleep. It looks for any and all instabilities and helps the brain correct those too.
Yeah, and so here's a question. You've obviously gone through the training, right? Mm-hmm. And you started this business before or after your divorce?
After.
So since then, have any of the people you've dated, have they come in for training, sleep recovery?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
Do you find that it helps your relationships? I mean, I know you're back in dating mode, so you're not necessarily with one of those people, but...
Well, most of the time is yes, but it's a little bit of a slippery slope because, when you meet somebody who's you're brand new with, and you tell them what you do, and they want to do it right away, you can't really tell if they're interested in you or what you do.
Right.
That's the first problem. The other problem is if you happen to have it too soon, and my professional ethics says if I'm dating somebody and I have any type of intimacy with them, I can't charge them. I can't make them a client.
Right.
So then they can potentially feel obligated in other ways, So it can be a little bit of a slippery slope. So generally I'll wait until it starts to assimilate into more of a potential long-term relationship instead of just dating.
Right.
But even after that fact, it has helped quite a bit.
Otherwise, they'll be concerned like you're brainwashing them or something, like in their sleep. Like, well is he making me?
I did date a woman, and her name was Karenoid, and she kind of had that idea. So.
Like as in paranoid?
Yeah.
Did you nickname her that?
Yeah.
Nice. Was she asking you if like you were putting subliminal messages in?
Some people just have a natural predilection to distrust.
Yeah.
And what I learned, especially in relationships, of those who don't trust can never be trusted. So it kind of smoked out that behavior before it turned into anything more permanent.
Did you find that she was leaving things in your drink or something? Or putting stuff in your sandwich?
Yeah, yeah. No roofies, no boiling bunnies, nothing like
that's
that.
Good.
So.
That's good. You got away from Karenoid soon enough.
Yeah.
Well, that's always a plus. it's interesting because when we first talked and everything, and I talked about having you on the podcast, and we ended up coming in here and actually going through 4 of the training sessions ourselves. But we came in, and it's an interesting process because I wasn't really sure what to expect. Like, how do you retrain the brain or what happens in here? But it's kind of cool because, as you said, we come into your office, and then you connect these little electrodes to our head.
What they are is they're more like sensitive microphones.
Right.
That listen into the electrical activity. Neurofeedback has been around for almost 50 years. I mean, it started with the NASA space program. And it's been used for bringing people out of comas and getting, 12-year-old girls out of wheelchairs and really some substantial stuff. But it can't be bottled and sold at a pharmacy. So it's been back-seated and back-burnered for literally 4 or 5 decades. And so the human mind has a natural suspicion of something that it doesn't have any past experience with. The human mind will learn something new, and then it will immediately try to associate it with some sort of memory in the past. And if it can't do that, then people can be kind of suspicious, and that's okay. That's okay.
And that's why I'm saying what I'm saying is because when to hear about something, you kind of interpret it in your own way, or you visualize it in your own way until you actually try it. So, when you say I hook you up to a machine, I mean, it's same with acupuncture. When you talk about acupuncture, people are thinking they're these huge long needles and it hurts and it's this and it's that.
Right.
And it's a much different experience when you go in and you actually have it done. And so when we came in here, it's very different because you're not laying down, you're sitting in a chair.
Right.
You can text, you can check your messages, you can be writing, you could read a book if you wanted, right?
Right.
So when we came in together, and it was a much different, it was an easy experience. And it was we were here probably 30 minutes connected to the software.
30 minutes each.
And I was able to clean out my inbox and do all kinds of stuff. But at the same time, we had earbuds in.
Right.
So we had to listen to music. And so I'll let you explain the music because I thought that was really interesting. It was very spa-like music, very relaxing.
Yeah.
But there were little skips in the...
Well, let's get back a little bit to the idea of how people view this initially.
Yeah.
So people will come in and they're naturally cautious. And so instead of battling against that or fighting against that, what I've done is I've kind of assimilated it into the program. And again, people see ads on the national news about this medication, that medication. They're like, well, why haven't we seen you on national news? Well, those 15 or 30-second spots are $1 million, sometimes $2 million, and our field doesn't have that kind of money to do that. But it doesn't disqualify or discredit us from being able to get really, really good results with people.
Right.
So when somebody contacts me, I will do things like direct them to our Yelp page, which has got a whole plethora of people that have graduated from our program that have shared their stories on there. And they're not actors; they're legitimate
real people.
clients here.
Yep.
And then I will also have them call 1 or 2 or 3 people that have also graduated, so they can get it from the horse's mouth.
Right.
And lastly, what we do is instead of signing people up for the whole 20 sessions, we allow them to be able to try it out with 4 sessions. So they only have to commit to 4 to start. And it's real reasonable. It's $499. Insurance doesn't cover it, unfortunately. But, they can try it for 4 sessions. And after 4, we'll stop and reevaluate. And we'll look at all the data as far as their self-reports, the mini brain scans that we do called baseline. So we take a snapshot of the brain before and after each session, so we can see measures of improvements.
Which is what we did. Sorry.
Which is internal. And then after 4, they'll decide if they want to continue with the remainder of the program, which is 16 more sessions for a total of 20. And the reason why it's 20, Leanne, is because the brain learns through repetition and review. Americans have this idea that when they get something and they expect something, they apply the principle of immediately, if not sooner, right? I want results yesterday, right? And that's just real common for our culture. And I'm not saying it's good or bad, but sometimes people will apply it to this. But what we're looking for is measured implements of improvement over time and over those 20 sessions. It's kind of like that adage that it takes 21 days to change an old habit into a new habit. It's very much like that. But the cool thing is that instead of it being a treatment like a pill or a medication or even talk therapy, where you have to continually do it, and if you stop doing it, the symptoms and the problem comes back, this is actually teaching the brain to do it on its own. So after 20 sessions, people don't have to do it anymore.
And then that's it. You're done.
And I call people about every 6 months from 6-7 years ago. How you doing? How you still sleeping? And an overwhelming majority of them are doing fine. They're getting sick of hearing from me every 6 months. But I need that data. I need to see how it's holding. And the people that didn't had some sort of a trauma. Their husband died, or they lost their job and they're struggling financially, or they were in a car accident.
So they had a major life event.
Correct.
Some sort.
Correct.
So when we came in, we each did 4 sessions. And talk about what your experience was and how you felt after.
So I came in, we did 4 sessions, and being from the scientific field, I tried to figure out what was going on, which makes it, I don't know if that helped or didn't help the process, but from an outsider's perspective, I see it as a way to retrain a portion of the body, sort of like exercise, sort of like anything. And we all know that if you go through exercise or you go through something appropriately and you do the work, that you're going to see some sort of outcome. And that's what you're saying this 20 sessions are like. And I'd rather do that than have some sort of medication or some sort of drug.
Right.
So to me, it was interesting through the 4 sessions that you provided us. Over the time, I can't say for certain whether they were. I don't think there was a long-term effect, but I think there was a short-term effect because I didn't have the 20 sessions.
Correct.
But because of the 4 sessions that I did have over the short amount of time that it did occur, it's been a few weeks now. I don't think I am sleeping as well as I did during the session time. And I can't attribute that to my current life or what's going on right now. But I think there was a benefit.
Well,
so how to educate other individuals about the benefit of this process is a challenge for any business. And I guess it's your challenge and this field's challenge to get that information out to people.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And, they say necessity is the mother of invention. So when people don't sleep, they hit a particular point where it's kind of like Ambien's a gateway drug into the clinic, and I hate to use that term, but it's kind of true.
Right.
Where people will go through that denial phase where they're just, if I just wait another week or a month, it'll go better, and it gets worse. Then they go to like Whole Foods or Costco, and they'll start with the valerian and the kava kava and the melatonin, and they'll do that shuffle for a while. And those things work great for about 2 or 3 nights, and then they wear off. And then they go to the doctor, and the doctor has no idea that neurofeedback is even out there. I mean, I've educated most of the doctors in this area, and they were resistant. But, I had their staff, they wouldn't do it, but I'd have their staff call other clients who had finished the program, or their staff, at least 1 or 2 of them didn't sleep, and I'd have them come in and do 2 or 3 or 4 sessions, and they'd go back to the doctor and go, you need to look at this, right?
Yeah.
But they'll go to the doctor, and the doctor will put them on what's called Z drugs, which is the Ambiens and the Lunestas and the Restorils. And these drugs are very strange drugs. In my humble opinion, I don't think they should really be on the market. They cause really nasty side effects, and some of them can be kind of dangerous.
Yeah.
We had one guy who woke up behind the wheel of his car at 6:30 in the morning. He had got up at about 2, sleepwalking, and got in his car and drove from Long Beach to Fresno, and woke up behind the wheel in Fresno. Didn't even know how he got there.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's scary.
Yeah.
First of all, Fresno.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
Like just ending up in Fresno, I've been there. But when I went through the 4 sessions, I noticed some changes in my sleeping behavior. And what I found was interesting. Remember, I told you I had slept really good the one night, and then we turned it up. You dialed it up a bit the second time, and then that night for like the next week or so, I kept waking up religiously at the same time in the middle of the night, like within like 60 seconds of that. Like every single time I'd wake up, my clock was at the same place. So the next session I had come in, I'm like, well, I don't know what's going on. Like I keep waking up at the same time. So, and I noticed it continued for a while, and then it evened out, and now I don't wake up at all. But
this is good. This is a good point because every brain's wired a little bit differently. And brains are really smart. Brains know those instabilities are there. And the brain knows they're not supposed to be there. And it will look for ways and means, usually outside ways and means, to try to self-correct. And a good example is if somebody has a lot of anxiety, and most Americans do, they'll go out with their friends for dinner and they'll have a glass or two of wine. And the alcohol in that wine will push a brainwave called low alpha. And low alpha is the feel-good, euphoria brainwave. And so that anxiety drops 80% in the course of 20, 30 minutes. And the brain says, eureka, I found the solution to the instability,
drink
right?
wine.
And so the greater the degree of the instability, the more there is the compulsion to drink then in a later date. And that's really the springboard for problem drinking. So what we're doing is we're giving the brain specific, detailed information and data about how it's misfiring and how to go about correcting it so it can circumvent that entire process.
Yeah.
That entire process. So people will come in with habitual patterns of taking Ambien or Lunesta. And the only help out there is drug and alcohol rehab centers that have these small, highly inefficient divisions for people that are addicted to Ambien.
Right.
And they treat them and brainwash them into believing that they are drug addicts. And psychologically, that's devastating for a person who's not.
So you don't think that, well, that's a whole conversation too in itself. But yeah, I could see why, like with my sleep patterns, even the times where I've had a lot of trouble sleeping in this past year and stuff, my sleep patterns for whatever reason had changed, for various reasons, had changed a lot. And I wasn't sleeping well through the night. I was getting up numerous times, all kinds of stuff. And then it started evening out. Then when we came and saw you, I noticed again a shift in some of the patterns, like waking up at a specific time that hadn't been happening and stuff. And now I'm sleeping through the night. And actually I'm sleeping a lot, but I know that's related to another problem.
Right.
But oddly enough, for as many sleep changes that I had in the past year, because I used to never have a problem, I never considered taking any over-the-counter help for any of that.
Because you're weird.
Well,
most people do.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, most people do.
No, she's not weird. She's pragmatic.
Well,
you wouldn't think so.
sounds
You would
weird.
argue with that.
Yeah.
But I don't. I prefer not to take anything ever when it comes to most anything.
And there are individuals that will suffer through it, and still they're in the same kind of denial. Not to say that you are, but hypothetically, they're in the same kind of denial, which is if I just wait long enough and ignore it, it'll go away.
Well, and the other thing is I'm always skeptical of instead of finding the cause of the problem, band-aiding the problem. And I'd prefer to find the cause of the problem. Am I extremely stressed? What can I do to change my stress levels? Am I eating differently? Am I eating different late at night? Am I, are my hormones changing? All that, because that all comes into play. And if I'm addressing the wrong thing and just putting a Band-Aid on it, I'm ignoring a million other things going on with my body.
But that's what a lot of people do.
Well, but you're right in one aspect and not right in another. And here's what I mean by that, is that people will Band-Aid with whatever, but they will lead themselves to believe that things like too much stress or work stress or hormones or whatever is the source or the core of the problem, and it's not. These things are on the periphery, and they will exacerbate the issue, but it's not the core of the problem. And most of the people that are in the sleep field and in the field of psychology are also barking up the wrong trees. A couple of really good examples is that psychologists have believe and delude people into thinking that the reason why they can't sleep is behavioral. Whatever. You need cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, or it's, an issue with your parents or unresolved trauma and all that. And a lot of times that's not the case.
Right.
It's not the case. And the doctors, because they are so enamored in psychopharmacology and medication and pills, they go, well, it is a neurochemical problem. So we need to bludgeon your brain into submission with these drugs like Ambien and Lunesta, and that doesn't work either.
Right. Well, that's what I mean. I wouldn't want to take any
Yeah,
of that.
that
I'd rather
doesn't work
find the
either.
root of the problem.
Right.
There's other things going on, obviously.
And I believe I found the root.
Yeah.
I think
So
I found the
you're
root.
saying the root of the problem is
It's bioelectrical.
okay. There you go.
It's bioelectrical. So there is a whole symphony of electrical activity going on in the brain all day, every day, from the second trimester before we're born until 5 hours after we stop breathing. So what happens is that bioelectrical energy, okay, doesn't fire properly. And that's the source of the problem. So when you try to apply medication to that, it's square peg round hole. Same with therapy. It's square peg round hole. And there is this massive hypnosis and denial in America that both of these work really well. And they don't. They don't. Anyway, please continue.
So my question is, if this is the problem, right, then does this only affect your sleep? Or let's say you're sleeping fine, but you're having other issues. Could it come out in other ways besides problem with your sleep?
Sure.
Okay. Like
Sure.
what?
Sure. Well, I believe insomnia and most instabilities in the EEG firing of the brain is hereditary. And I've seen examples of that. So let's say a mother comes in for her insomnia or her anxiety or panic or whatnot. And we do that snapshot of her brain.
So people don't have to come to you just for insomnia. They can come for you for anxiety.
Yeah, and they do.
Okay,
Sure, they do.
okay.
But they will come and we'll take that snapshot of their brain and we'll treat them. And sure enough, they get better. And then they go, my daughter needs to come, or my mom needs to come, or my son needs to come. And we'll do the snapshot of their sibling's brain or their son's brain, and it matches them almost exactly time after time after time.
Right.
There is a pattern. There's a pattern. And it makes sense. We inherit eye color and hair color from our parents. We also inherit brainwave patterns from our parents, too.
That's scary.
But if you inherit, well, that's interesting because I don't know if there is data to support that or not, empirical evidence or anecdotal evidence at least. But does that mean, can you train out heredity?
No, but the brain is a learning organ. And the only thing it loves more than learning is learning to run itself more efficiently so it can learn better. So you can't change DNA structure, but you can change the expression of it. You can change the expression of it. So, and if that wasn't true, I wouldn't be in business. I'd be long gone. So the brain loves to learn new things. It's almost designed by nature to do that. And the brain, again, is very, very self-intelligent, which it doesn't get credit for. I mean, most doctors think the brain's 3 pounds of stupid, meaning that the brain can't make decisions on its own for its own health and well-being, and it can't self-correct without the doctor and the doctor's ego intervening. And this is long-held belief, and it's so widespread that it's almost a lie that has become a truth. But that's not true. The brain can take this information that the software is giving it, and it can self-correct, and the outward behaviors and symptoms get better, and they stay better. So that's, as far as I'm concerned, it's not empirical, but it's anecdotal enough for people to be able to get the relief that they need.
So back to the behaviors. So if you're providing a training program to improve your sleep, how does that improve the daily behaviors of somebody?
Good question. And not to repeat myself or to be redundant, but that session of neurofeedback and the other 19 sessions that they do after is not just looking for the brainwave instabilities that are connected with sleep. Sleep just happens to be my specialty. It's looking for any and all instabilities, no matter what they're connected to. So, in America, we also have to connect any type of an anomaly with some sort of a disorder of the DSM-5, right? Or it's not legit. So, sometimes they're connected with anxiety. Sometimes kind of connected with the inability to pay attention, being able to let people finish their sentences before having to intervene, which is a real common problem in America now. I have a filmmaker who is a very, very skilled filmmaker, this guy, but he's visual, right? And this poor guy read at a third grade level, literally a third grade level. And when he read out loud, it was cringe-bearing, embarrassing for him and everybody around him, and he's just about finished with the whole program now. Now he reads at a college level.
Wow.
Had nothing to do with his sleep. Nothing to do with his sleep. So, but we tend to do that. We tend to compartmentalize. If you specialize in sleep, then it can't possibly work on anything else, and that's not true.
So what other behaviors
Yeah.
then? Because again, the whole point of why we are here is because of the relationship.
Right, sure.
So better sleep, better brain patterns help us with improving what behaviors?
Right.
It's a very good question. And the honest answer is that is unique to each individual and their brain. Some people will notice a profound reduction in their anxiety. Some people will notice their empathy and compassion and their capacity for love will increase. All these factor into relationship dynamic, right? Being a more active listener, being less curt with our parents or our husbands and wives and our children. All these things are connected with whatever instabilities are there. And they're just very, very unique to each individual.
This was an eye-opening experience, I think, for both of us on what the potential of a training session could be with nothing invasive, no pharmaceuticals, no drugs, no nothing.
Right.
And then to actually feel the impact of that training over a short amount of time. So we're getting close to the end of time here. How can we get other people interested in, and what do they need to look up? We'll definitely put your information on our webpage, and you're going to see how to get in contact with David. But what would you recommend for someone who may not be in Southern California, or how would they? What would they look up if they were in the Google?
Oh no, that's great. I'm glad you asked that. Well, let's start with the website. It's sleeprecoverycenter.com. So you can go to the website. There's really good information on there. Our toll-free number is area code 888-866-REST, R-E-S-T. And I just want everybody to know that you can call, and all the phone consultations are for free. So you can call and you can ask questions or set an appointment. You're not obligated to do that, but everybody gets a free consultation over the phone. Because again, they have to be educated and encouraged to make the decision for themselves, just to research it and let me explain it and let the website explain it so you understand it before you reject it.
Right.
So I'm in the process of finishing a book. It's called The Sleep Recovery Solution. It'll be available on Amazon for both print and for Kindle. And it'll explain a lot more in depth of what we talked about today.
I think this has been great. The experience was very enjoyable. I think we both walked away going, I don't know. I'm sleeping better now for sure.
No, it's
like
great.
I'm sleeping through the night. I mean, can that be attributed to other things? Because like you said, we didn't do the full 20 sessions. We did 4.
Right.
But I could, when we were doing that 4 sessions, there were differences that I think we both saw. And then after those sessions were done, obviously things changed again. But like you say, you need the full 20 sessions to do out. But it was a really good learning experience, and it's fascinating.
Well, it's good to illustrate that
Yeah.
again. I mean, again, every brain's wired a little bit differently.
I really do believe in going this route versus an over-the-counter thing, because long-term, this is a healthier, there's
Right.
less risk. There's more positive outcomes to be had than if you were to just Band-Aid it.
And most importantly,
Yeah.
it's long-lasting.
Right.
It's long-lasting. We don't want people to get strung out on our program or neurofeedback like they would an Ambien,
Right.
or even over-the-counter stuff. So,
All right. Well,
Thank you for your time today, and
Yeah.
thank you for the experience. I think it was beneficial for both Leanne and I think our listeners will also find this as a potential solution or a potential avenue to solve some of their problems.
no, that's
Absolutely.
great. No, I'm really grateful that we had a chance to get the word out, and both of you have got 16 sessions more to go. So,
that means we need a lot of work. Well, thank you very much, and hopefully everybody out there will kind of reach out and talk to you, get some consults. So
yeah, just give us a call. So,
All right.
Perfect. Well, thanks a lot.
Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you.